Well, good Wednesday morning, everyone. It's another day of inspiration for today. And today we're coming to chapter 15 of the book of Revelation. We started with March through Revelation, and now I know we're into April. But we just couldn't do it justice doing it in that few days. But we are moving fast these days because we are in that period of the Great Tribulation, and we totally believe that the church has been removed and is in heaven with Jesus, either prior to the rapture, 7 years starting, or at the midpoint. And so that's where we find it. And just to refresh ourselves, back in chapter 11, we were in the midst of the Lamb, Jesus, unsealing the scroll. And the scroll had 7 seals. And he opened the 7th seal, and that reveals 7 trumpet judgments. Now, those trumpet judgments, we went through the first 6, and we just opened in back in chapter 11, the 7th trumpet sounded. But these chapters in between, because actually we're going to find out next time, tomorrow, what happens in that 7th trumpet. And I almost said what it was, but I'll wait till tomorrow. But in these intervening chapters, the Apostle John is seeing various scenes in heaven that really don't have chronological nature. They just happen, and he describes them during those 3.5 last years. So yesterday we talked about in chapter 14, and at the end, the last part of chapter 14, it was talking about the harvesting, the Jesus describing how the end times start to happen with a lot of bloodshed. So in a way, this chapter 15 now is an introduction to what's going to come next time, with 7 angels that will tell us about the 7 last judgments for the earth that will ever happen prior to Jesus setting up his millennial kingdom. So let's just dig in. Chapter 15 at verse 1. I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign, 7 angels with the 7 last plagues. I think I've had enough. And I know the earth will have had. These are serious, because with them, God's wrath is completed. Remember, God is sovereign, and what he has decreed is going to happen will happen. And there is a certain amount of his wrath that is going to be poured out on the earth right before Jesus comes back as the lion, the conqueror. Verse 2. And I saw what looked like the sea of glass mixed with fire, standing beside the sea, those who had been victorious over the beast and his image and over the number of his name. Remember that number? It was in chapter 13. We saw that if you during the last times, if you wanted to buy things, do business, sell anything, whatever, you had to have his number, which was 666. But here it says, up in heaven, John sees those who had been victorious over the beast and his image and the number of his name. Now, I think that's a really important thing to dwell on for just a moment. Because if they're in heaven, let me ask you this. What happened to them? They died, didn't they? And yet, John says they were victorious over the beast. A lot of times, our definition of victorious does not include the fact that they died on earth because they stood up for Jesus and the gospel and for God. So I think it's very important to note that being victorious means, evidently, you're a victor, even if it costs you your life, if you're standing for Jesus. And that's what they did. They die, and now John is seeing them beside that sea that looks like glass. And then look what happened. Then they held harps given them by God and sang the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. I think this is, sometimes we hear that, well, I don't, heaven, if all it is sitting around playing harps, I don't know that that's for me. Well, I never understood exactly where that came from, why people think they play. Well, these folks are playing harps, but I'll bet it's harp music like you and I have never heard before. It would be, these are the victors. It's just amazing, the song that I'll bet you they are singing, that song of Moses and of the Lamb. And here's what it was. I wish we knew the music to it, but here's the lyrics. Great and marvelous are your deeds, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the ages. Who will not fear you, O Lord, and bring glory to your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you, for your righteous acts have been revealed. That's going to be a glorious song, and I think we'll sing right along. We'll learn it quickly. It'll be in heaven a glorious time. So in heaven, we know that things are going to get even worse on earth. But our prayer and thought, we will be that many, many will turn to Christ and spend eternity with us in heaven. Verse 5, after this I looked, and in heaven the temple, that is, the tabernacle of the testimony, was opened. Out of the temple came 7 angels with the 7 plagues. Those are what we're going to hear, what those are tomorrow. And they're called the bowl, B-O-W-L, bowl judgments. Fortunately, even as we read here, these are the last. Now, John takes some time and describes those angels. And he says they were dressed in clean, shining linen and wore golden sashes around their chests. Majestic, weren't they? And then one of the 4 living creatures, which we read about in chapter 4, gave to the 7 angels 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of God, who lives forever and ever. Wow. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one can enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed. And that's, again, what we will see and study tomorrow. And it's just, none of them are things that we would want to be involved with at all, of course. I do think it's so interesting that John, in his description of what he is seeing, he is saying that the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and his power. He's trying to describe a scene like none of us have ever seen. And we know, I'm 99% sure it's not actual smoke, but it's some sort of, a glory, a sheen maybe that is given to the whole room that just declares God's glory. It's just radiating from him. Well, we are getting well along in our study. I encourage you to read verse 16 for tomorrow, and we'll talk about it in detail, but we won't have to, it's a longer chapter. We will not have time to read the whole chapter tomorrow, just the highlights. But we're getting to the end. Stay encouraged. You want to stay to the end. In the end, as we said in the beginning, God wins. And it's a great and glorious day when Jesus comes back and sets up his kingdom right here on earth. God bless. Have a great day in the Lord, and we will see you tomorrow.
Beautiful day. It's wonderful. This is the day that the Lord